Welcome everybody to tonight's home clinic. A home clinic is where we grab one quality coach and he presents on one specific subject for you guys to enjoy, and he usually does that from home. If you guys have been enjoying this series and would like to see it continue, we want to ask that you would like and subscribe below. Those things certainly help us to grow and is kind of that feedback to say this is a good thing. Keep this coming. If you have a desire to present in the future, reach out to us on Twitter, DM us. That's at the Chief Pigskin. All right, without further ado, tonight's home clinic. All right, hey everybody, Nate Albaugh here, assistant football coach at Unity High School in Tolono, Illinois. Also producer of Chief Pigskin, the online clinic, alongside Matt Snyder, running backs coach at Western University in London, Ontario. Coach, this is take two because one moment ago I didn't hit record, but I swear I'm recording now. I've had a little issue with that lately. Welcome to our YouTube channel to talk a little ball.
Man, I'm pumped to be here. It's anytime you can talk about Canadian football as a Canadian, it's great. And I just love talking about football, so it'll be a fun day for us.
Well, for those of you that are just watching, we had our first Canadian coach last Wednesday, and I just thought, you know what, for as long as we can, we're going to try to make Wednesday night Canadian football night on our YouTube channel here. So if you coach Canadian football, you'd like to speak, or you could suggest somebody to be willing to speak, please reach out to us on Twitter at the Chief Pigskin. Shoot us a DM, and we would love to keep Wednesday night as Canadian football night on our channel. Coach, you've been at Western now for a year, and were you coaching college ball before that?
I'm a longtime high school football coach from the area. There's a lot of football in Canada to be played. I've actually coached pretty much at every level you can coach at now. I've coached junior football for a year, which is under 22 football. Okay. I've coached competitive summer football. We have a big competitive football circuit that plays in the spring in our province. I actually also coached grade 8 football for one season when I got back from university after my playing days were over. So,
and where did you play?
I played at University of Windsor, which is about 2 hours from where I live in London, close to the Detroit border. It's in the same conference that I currently coach at, and played there in 2004 to 2007.
Wow, man. So you've coached a little bit of everything at this point.
I have been around a lot of different levels, just because in Canada there's not as much football being played, so you kind of have to go to where it's being played if you want to coach. So I coached 3 seasons, one calendar year. I coached the summer season, and then as soon as that ended, I started the high school season, and then at night I was coaching the under 22 team. So I was coaching 2 teams at once.
But, wow. You know, I've actually often really wished there was some sort of like separate thing to coach in the spring for me, like separate, so that honestly, so I felt like I could almost like try something different for one, right? Like, I'm thinking about this offense. Yeah. Maybe I could try that in this league. Yeah. I always thought something like that would be cool. But man, so it sounds like you really are coaching nonstop, or have been, and now at Western. And what kind of season did you guys have last year?
Yeah, so last year we lost in the conference finals. Our league's 27 teams split over 4 conferences. We lost in the conference finals. They've had a ton of success the last couple of years. 2 years before I joined, they won the national championship game. Last year, the year before that, or after that, they lost in the national championship. And last year we lost in the conference finals. And it's a historic program, lots of good tradition. They've won a ton there, and hopefully keep winning as we move forward. So it's been a great place to be, learning a ton at that level.
Yeah, I'll bet. It has to be fun. And I mean, anytime you start a new job, I've always felt like the first couple of months always have this homesick feeling. Mm-hmm. And then once you get over the homesick feeling, then it's exciting. You get to know new people and new things and new jobs. Yeah. Well, I don't want to take too much of everybody's time. Everybody's here to listen to you speak, not me. Coach is going to speak a little bit on kind of like the base RPOs, right? Like getting going with some RPOs, some simple ways to do it if you're a run-heavy team. That's the way it was explained to me. Yeah. So without further ado, Coach, to go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit today about kind of like simple first down RPOs. If you're in a run-heavy offense, things that you can use to protect formations with very minimal investment. I also called it like the safe RPOs for high school coaches who hate taking risks. I'm going to explain a little bit about kind of how we came to this point, and then I'll show you what we're doing at both the university level and what I was doing as a high school coach before that. So this is kind of how offensive coordinators think, that they're the genius, and obviously defensive coordinators are simplified, but I don't think sometimes you have to be as complicated. There's a ton of stuff on RPOs online right now. So if you're a guy that's running RPOs, you might not get a ton from this, but if you're not running it, this might be the clinic where you can pull some ideas out of. So a couple disclaimers. First, this is a presentation that I designed kind of for youth or high school coaches or coaches at the club level in Canada. It's tailored for coaches who aren't running RPOs currently, or they are maybe, but they're just not getting the results they want from it. You might be running a run-heavy offense that takes a lot of time, the option or a wing T, some kind of multiple personnel package type run game. Maybe you're getting a lot of kids playing two ways and you just don't have the time to put stuff in, or you're one of those coaches that every time you have to call a pass play, you kind of cringe. That's the kind of coach I was. Who am I? Quickly, I'm the running backs coach at Western University in London, Ontario. I'm a long-time small school, high school football coach. I'm a very conservative play caller. I used to run the football over and over again. I used to coach at places with some inherent handicaps in terms of our size, our structure, the resources we had available. We desperately wanted to win, so we had to get very creative at times. We wanted to be a real pass-heavy offense. We just never had the time to get it going, so we started to focus on running the football over and over again. And I think when you start to do that, obviously your pass game suffers in terms of our sophistication. I coach currently at Western University, which is a post-secondary institution based in London, Ontario. It's about 2 hours from the Detroit border and 2 hours from Buffalo. It's one of the most prestigious and successful successful schools in Canada. Approximately 28,000 students, full part-time, and our grad students. A couple national championships recently, 2017, 2018 they lost. Last year we lost in our conference finals. Our head coach has pro experience. He's coached in the CFL. We got a couple players on our team with D1 transfers. Our quarterback actually played at University of Buffalo. We have a running back as well that was on the University of Minnesota for a few years. We're a no-huddle up-tempo offense. We're exclusive two-back. So for American guys, think like 11 personnel or 20 personnel. We're very diverse. A lot of stuff in our toolbox. We have a lot of plays in our offense. We're a heavy gap scheme. We run a lot of power and counter. And then we run basically any version of split zone that you can run, we have it in our offense. We're going to run our quarterback at times, either through called runs or through our zone read. We're running some RPO stuff at Western. We have a lot of package plays. We're running all the typical read the will and throw the slant. We're a zone read team as well. We'll run some pre and post snap RPOs. I'm also a high school football coach at heart. I'm a former high school football coach at South Collegiate in London, which is a public high school with around 550 to 600 students. We had around 28 to 35 players at senior football. Some of those guys were program guys that might not get on the field a ton. One thing that I think is unique is we had years where we had 3.5 coaches coaching senior football at our team. We were predominantly a gap scheme run team, running power counter. We ran some two-man veer stuff, multiple personnel packages and formations. We also ran our quarterback heavily in the run game. Some of the challenges that if you're a small school coach, you kind of go through is all of our best guys on offense also played on defense. They were also on our special teams. Like our best receiver was also the left winger on our hockey team. He played soccer and badminton. He acted in our school play. Our quarterback played basketball. He ran track. He had a job. It's hard to get those guys doing football stuff in the off season. They were committed to our football team, but they were also committed to their other activities. So aside from weights in London and in Ontario, usually when football season ends, it's pretty much the end of it until spring camp starts. I'll tell you real quick a little bit about high school football in Ontario, especially if you're an American guy. You might not have an idea what goes on up here, but high school football in Ontario is very competitive. There's lots of passion. There's a lot of good people coaching and working hard and trying to win. There's a ton of tradition. There's some schools that have been doing this for a long time. Unfortunately, there's just not as many resources as some of the U.S. schools have in terms of money, support, coaches, access to players in the off-season. We'll typically run a shorter season. Our league in London is a 5-league high school game. Teams will have an opportunity to play 2 non-conference games as well. Our preseason is very short. We start practice 1 week before Labor Day. We're basically playing midway through September. A lot of the fields in our city, there's no booths at. We're not allowed to wear headsets. We're not allowed to have sideline video in our league. Football in Ontario is split between junior and senior, which is unlike the JV and varsity system, and the juniors for grade 9 and 10s and seniors for grade 11, 12s. And if players want to come back for a 5th year, that's allowed in our province as well. It's very rare that a grade 9 or 10 player would play senior football, whereas in the States, if you had exceptional grade 9 or 10, he's likely playing varsity for you. Our games are typically played during the day. Like a night game in Ontario is very rare. We have limited staff sizes. There's no stipends for coaches. Our team that I was coaching at, we had one teacher on our staff coaching senior football. We're calling the games from the field. We have irregular schedules in our league as well. We might play a Friday at 2 p.m. and then we're playing the next Thursday at noon. We don't have access to our players in the summer. We're not allowed to do off-season coaching. We're not allowed to start practice until a week before Labor Day. The one thing Ontario does have is a competitive spring football circuit where players that are very serious with football can go and play to get better. I guess why this matters in terms of kind of what I'm going to talk about. The shorter season's hard because you get less time to get diverse. We're playing 7 weeks and then our playoff starts. We don't have booths. We don't have headsets, no sideline video. We don't have huddle sideline. So there's really no way you can see everything from the sideline. The small staffs is interesting because you don't have as many people watching or offering feedback. Calling games from the field with no kind of upstairs eyes is difficult. It's impossible to see exact alignments. And then the irregular schedule is also a challenge because you might not have as much time to game plan new stuff each week for your opponent. So sometimes you really just have to focus on getting better on what you're doing. We all have the classic small school problems. We had players playing both ways. Too many offensive, defensive, and special teams installs can be really disruptive. There's no class system in our province, so big and small schools are going to play each other. They all play in the same league. We do have tiering. But eventually, if you want to be a champion, you have to play someone very big. And we have schools in our city that are 2,200 students. So the good teams have to find a way to get it done. Who are you? If you're watching this clinic, you might be a Canadian football coach that's looking for some Canadian content. Maybe you're an American guy that's just a clinic junkie and wants to see what the guys up in Canada are doing. You might coach at a small school like I used to. You might be running a run-heavy offense with a limited passing game. You might have the endless battle of time that I used to have. You have lots of ideas. You never have enough time to get them done. You might be very risk-averse or conservative by nature. Maybe you're not using RPOs frequently or you're dabbling in them, but you're not having the success you want. Maybe you want to improve your pass game, but you can't invest the time. You don't want to run the air raid. You're looking for the best return on your buck in terms of installation. That was what I was looking for. What's the best return on your buck? So I guess ask yourself one question. Have you ever coached a football game and after the game you watched the film and you were sick to your stomach because you didn't take advantage of something the defense was giving you either by their alignment or their reaction? I've been in that position, and I've coached games where I had no one in the booth. I was calling the plays by myself with no other coaches worrying about the offense. Our head coach is doing specials, our other defense corners worrying about the defense. And for example, my far side receiver couldn't tell me that his DB was playing 10 yards off because he was also playing corner and he was returning kicks and he was our punter. Are you risk averse by nature? Are you conservative? I am. I had limited trust in our pass game in big games because we had limited time to work on it, and I had to pick and choose where our focus went. And we knew that if we were going to win, we had to run the football. We wanted to run power. We wanted to run counter. We wanted to run dual. We wanted to have some two-man veer. We wanted to be able to get in and out of multiple tight end sets. We wanted to have dominant double teams. We wanted to have great kickouts. We wanted our pullers to be awesome. But so did our DC. He also wanted to have a crazy blitz package. He wanted to have, a bunch of different fronts. Our head coach wanted to have a field and boundary and a middle punt return. He wanted to have 2 different punt protections in each week. Each of those things takes time because it's all the same kids. It takes time away from things like pass scaling and pass versus air. I'm also humble enough to admit that I can't call the perfect play all the time. I need to stress that I was very risk averse when it came to pass game. I didn't want to force pass plays, but I was seeing some very obvious completions on film that I felt like we need to take advantage of to at least give the aura that we'll throw the football. I knew that defenses weren't playing us honestly, especially as we went later in our seasons. I knew that stop routes and were easy completions for us to throw. And I thought that by combining them with run plays, we start to create some perfect situations where we had our best opportunity to complete passes and get 5 yards. So this is kind of the reality you face if you're a run-heavy coach. We want to run the football. When I was coaching high school, we didn't want to throw bubbles and stops. We couldn't beat your ass throwing bubbles and stop routes. But running the football is really hard. It's really hard versus teams that cheat their alignment to stop your run. A defense, I think, can always outman you at the point of attack if they're willing to play man coverage. If you're a 2-back run-heavy team, in my city at least, at some point someone's going to play a 50 front. They're going to take your doubles away. They're going to play cover zero. And they're going to say, okay, throw the ball to win. We used to be a phone booth football team. Our old answer to all that type of stuff was we're going to bring in another guy to block. We'll bring another guy to block. Soon we're playing in a phone booth. We wanted to throw the ball with minimal risk. We just never really got in the groove of being that conventional, like post-snap, mesh, and read a defender RPO team. It just wasn't in our wheelhouse. So everybody knows what RPOs are nowadays. There's a ton of stuff online if you want to learn about RPOs. What I'm going to talk about, I think, is more accurately described as pre-snap options or pre-snap pass alerts. We're going to basically ask our quarterback to make a simple choice of do I throw a football or hand it off based on how a stationary defender is aligning over our formations. Okay. Every defense in Canada, if you're not familiar with it, is basically designed to account for 2 receivers to each side with a run-first defender. They have a cornerback, and they have what we would call a halfback, which is equivalent to like a low, strong safety on each side of the formation. And then there's a free safety middle of the field. So regardless of if they're a man or zone team, as you start to add like a third and fourth receiver to a side, you're starting to force a defense in Canada to make a decision. Who's going to account for that guy? You know, maybe they'll bring the free safety down. Maybe they'll bump a linebacker out. Teams might bring the backside half across, or maybe they'll rotate. Or maybe some teams, they won't do anything to account for them. But each of those decisions that the defense makes creates a possibility for the offense. But having answers to take advantage of all those things is impossible when you're facing the challenges that we were facing. And having a lot of plays sometimes isn't better. So it's kind of led us to what became our pre-snap option package. It basically, pre-snap options give you a simple play or plays that contains easy answers for things that defense will do to stop your runs, usually through their alignment. Takes advantage of defenses who don't align over each receiver, or they play off zone in order to keep more eyes on the running back or your running quarterback. It also, why we like them is it let us be perfect play callers. We can call 2 plays at the same time that I'm very comfortable with. We can run the best one based on the alignment. We can train our 16-year-old quarterback to make those decisions without having to teach him how to audible or having to create some kind of complex no-huddle check system. So if you're still watching this, kind of as I've rambled on, I want you to do yourself a favor. And we have all the time in the world right now. So go back and watch every run play you called last year where you gained 3 or less yards, okay? And in each of those plays, I want you to ask yourself, how many times, based on the alignment of the defense, did you have some easy completion on the field, either like a 5-yard stop to say your boundary wide receiver, or maybe your number 3 into the field in trips? How many times could you have completed that pass just because the defense didn't align to respect that route? How many of those runs that you gained 3 or less yards could have been an easy 5-yard completion had you called a pass instead? That's kind of what we're going to talk about. And the first pre-snap or RPO we're going to talk about is essentially just tagging all stops on any of your inside run plays. It's the easiest RPO you're ever going to see. It's the RPO that I say is for the risk-averse coach. So basically, we're just going to call a run play and we're going to tag all stops. It's a great call versus zone defense, either hold, which is like half low and corner high, or cut, which would be corner low and half high, etc. You're just going to basically read the contour of the defense. It's a great first down call. You kind of stack your odds of getting a nice 5-yard gain. Stop routes are safe. They're a reliable throw for a quarterback and a receiver to execute. This is essentially kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to run our split zone with all stops, and we're only going to throw it when it's wide open. So basically how we're coaching our quarterback is this. We're going to say line up, and before the cadence, just take a look. Is there any DB off far enough that you can throw one of the stop routes? If there is, just throw it. Forget about the run. Don't signal to anybody. You don't have to give a verbal cue. Just catch the ball, turn, and throw the ball at that receiver. If there's not, just hand it off to the running back. Nobody except the quarterback has to know that the pass is happening. The ball is going to be out quickly, and you're probably going to get a better run reaction from the defense than if you were play actioning or checking to some kind of pass protection scheme. Our wide receivers, we're going to coach them and say, basically, you got to expect the pass is coming on every play and run your route accordingly. If we throw you the football, catch it first before anything else. And if you catch the ball and fall forward, you're getting 5-yard gain. If we catch it and we fall towards the end zone, it's 6-yard gain. If you can break one tackle, now we start to create situations where we can get some big chunks on a safe throw. So, like, think about it. If we were averaging 6 yards a run on our run play, we'd be pretty happy. I know I would be pretty happy. But if we all put our egos aside for a sec, does it really matter how we're getting that 6 yards? Does it matter if it's a handoff, a stop route, a bubble route, or a kid running the football? I mean, for me, that was a big part of it was my ego. I said, we're a running team. Well, when I stopped realizing that it didn't matter how we were getting yards, let's just get the yards. And all I cared about was that it was 2nd and 4, kind of changed my world. So here's an example. We're getting, basically hold coverage. The corners are off, so we can throw the ball easily to the outside receivers. In this situation, we're getting hold or cut coverage to the boundary, so that half is far off. We could easily complete a pass to the number 2 into the boundary. If they're playing tight man, that's okay. We'll still run the ball. Even if there's 7 guys in there, it's still a good look for us to run the ball. Here's a quick example of us running this play at Western. We're basically going to run inside zone to the left, and we're tagging all stops. You can see that the free safety who's covering our number 3 is at least 15 yards off. We just turn and bang it out there, and that's an easy completion. Here's another example running inside zone to the right. You can see that the number 2 defender is very far off the number 2 receiver. Again, we're talking 2nd and 7 right now. We just turn and bang it out. The O-line is running. You'll even see that downfield. Our center is getting downfield. but that's okay. We're going to make the referees call it. Here's the third example. Same thing. The free safety's off number 3. We just turn and bang it out there. Our quarterback, he's just going to catch the ball, pivot and throw. So it's kind of talks like this is kind of about the known versus the unknown. Running the football is great. You can dominate your opponent. You can wear him down. All that stuff is awesome. But there's a lot of moving parts to the run game. There's a lot of chance for failing. All we're just trying to get is 5 yards. So if you can line up and you can look out and you can see a receiver has a DB 10 yards off him, sometimes that might be the better option. Isn't throwing him the ball for 5 yards a safer bet than trying to run the ball? I don't know. I think it is. Even if I can't, my quarterback can see that DB is off. Even if I'm coaching high school football in London and I'm on the far side of the field and I can't see how far off that field receiver is, because remember, our fields are 65 yards wide. Our quarterback can see that. I know he has a good chance of completing that easy pass in front of him and getting 5 yards. Sometimes it's better to take the known versus the unknown of running the ball, especially early in downs when you have a chance, if you, for example, drop that pass, you can try to make it back. Okay? So building off that, if you take this concept and you add it into your offense, there's a couple things you can do very easily to protect the concept or attack what you'll start to see from defenses. So the reality is, like, if you're running this consistently, at some point teams are going to play man or they're going to walk their DBs up on you. The stop route's going to be gone by alignment and you're kind of losing the concept. So it's no longer an easy completion. But what you can start to do is it builds in a series of play calls. After 2 or 3 series of you handing the ball off and your receivers running hitch routes, you're starting to condition DBs to jump those stop routes and you can throw a double move on them. So the next step is, if you put this in your offense, put in some kind of play action double move. Okay. So even when your RPOs aren't being used, when you're not throwing the ball to the receivers, you're still getting a useful reaction out of the offense because you're conditioning the DBs to jump those stop routes to throw the double move later. So this is an example of that. Here's a quick example. We had run a bunch of double moves on these guys early, a bunch of stop routes on these guys early. We're going to throw a double move now. Here it is. That's a super easy completion. I mean, even if you're not a sophisticated pass offense, it doesn't take much to install this in your offense and run it. That's a nice, easy gain. And we've called that because someone up top has started to see that DB is jumping our stop routes. Okay, so here's another RPO idea. If that's something that you're interested in, you can start to add your offense as well. We started to attach fades to our run plays as well, because sometimes we felt like we wanted to take a shot, but we weren't always sure if throwing the ball based on coverage was the best look until we got aligned. So, people are going to start to tighten up their DBs and your receivers and take away the easy access throws, the stop routes. So we started tagging fades on some of our run plays. We basically told the quarterback, hey, if the fade looked good, if you're getting one-on-one, just catch the ball and throw it up and let our best guy go make a play. If for whatever reason it just doesn't look good, just hand the ball off. We didn't call this as often, but it was a nice call on early downs because 2 reasons. If we didn't like the fade pre-snap, we had a place for the quarterback to go with the football, handing the ball off, without trying to get him to find a secondary read or check the ball down. This limited his bad decision makings. The second thing is the run action from the O-line really got the safeties involved. So we were essentially getting man-to-man with no help as free safeties started to fly down to play the run. So if they're creeping up, call your fade route, tagged on your split zone or whatever run play you want to run, and take a shot if you like the alignment. So adding this to your existing offense, how could you add this in if you wanted to run this kind of concept? The first is you can install your inside run plays with built-in pass plays. It's easy to do. Your players will know it. As you call an inside run, your split zone, for example, they know I'm going to run my all stop routes. I think the second way to do it, what I like to do is create a tag. So give your stop routes a name and tag it on your run plays. The advantage to that is it's a little bit safer, because if you want to call a run play with no option to throw the ball, you don't have to call the tag. You just call your inside split zone with no run tag or pass tag. And if there's no pass tag, the quarterback has no option. You just have to hand the ball off. So how do you coach this during the week? I think it's super easy to coach this concept for us. We would put on film of our opponents, and we basically just go through clips, and we'll stop it right before the snap, and we'll say, okay, we have power right on from this formation. What's the decision? Are we throwing the access throws to the outside receivers, or do we like the handoff? And we just basically let him kind of play the game in his head. So you can start to see, based on how the team you're playing is aligning, by giving you correct scenarios, you're coaching him during the week. Sometimes it's obvious on film that there is or isn't an easy access throw. Sometimes it's cloudy, the DB's in that middle range. This is really where you can coach your quarterback on the level of risk you're willing to take. How close for you is too close to throw the football. We'll talk about the third RPO that we like. This is pretty much the most common RPO that I think people are running, is just that easy access bubble screen to the number 3 receiver in trips. We started to do that as well, but we kind of had to make a transition to an even easier throw because we were honestly struggling to complete bubbles at times. So we started to go what we call now throws. And this is for the guy who wants an even easier throw than a stop route. So all stops, it was our easiest RPO. It's a safe throw. It was very clear for the quarterback. You know, we were tagging some fades. We're getting nice throws off that. We got a couple opportunistic completions on first down. We weren't throwing fades into bad looks. We were just handing the ball off. We had a couple big gains on stop and go plays after hypnotizing DBs as we started to hand the ball off over and over again. We started to run the bubble screen as well, and I'm going to show you a couple ways to get your studs easy touches using a bubble screen or a now throw for less risk. I'm going to show you diagrams with what we would call our now throws, but if you're more comfortable with conventional bubble screens, you could probably run all those concepts with a bubble screen as well. Same basic idea. So basically, we're in trips right, and we're going to run power right with we call it power right now. Okay. So we were also, like I said before, we were also running 3-man bubble concepts, and everyone was doing that nowadays. We were tagging that on runs and reading the defender on top of our number 3. And then something happened. Our quarterback got hurt. We had to play our backup quarterback. He's a really nice kid. He's really fast, but he wasn't a thrower. And so we had to come up with some answers real quick because we were starting to bounce some bubble screens in the dirt or sail them over our head. We just didn't have the time to invest to get really good at bubbles. So kind of in a stroke of genius, maybe more of like a fit of rage, I said, like, listen, just turn and catch the football. So what's a now throw? It's actually pretty simple. Our receiver's just going to run up field, stop, and turn. Our quarterback, he's just going to catch a snap, turn, and throw the ball to a guy standing still. We just tell him catch the football and then get upfield. So whenever we would call a now screen on our run plays, we would always tag the backside receiver on a stop route because it's the easiest throw in our offense. So we would tell the quarterback, first thing, just check the backside. If you're getting 5-yard completion, just take it. If the guy's off, let's just throw the ball. He's giving you a gift. Okay. Stop route isn't viable. We would tell our quarterback, look at the number 3 receiver. Obviously, if there's nobody covering him, if nobody is on him, just throw him the ball on the stop route, on the now route or the bubble screen. If someone covers him, but he's really far off, just throw him the ball. If the guy's tight on him, hand the ball off. If you're not sure, hand the ball off. Nothing groundbreaking here. The now screen, we basically just tell him the same thing. Anticipate the football's coming every play. Attack line of scrimmage with your motion. On the snap, just slam the brakes on, turn and face the quarterback. Catch it first. Run as fast as you can. Try to get 5 yards. And then after you get your 5 yards, just be athletic and kind of do what you do. But you got to get that 5 yards first. We coach them on concepts like using your speed, just running through open grass, attacking at ASAP, forcing people to tackle you on the run. Why did we go to the now versus the bubble? Well, I think I explained it, but it's easier to throw for the quarterback who's not the best. Throwing at a target that's stationary is a lot easier than throwing at a guy that's moving. So less moving parts, it's obviously more chance for success. It's easier to catch, in my opinion. Sometimes it's important. Why this is important is sometimes, like on Tuesday in Ontario, your best receiver is going to get hurt, or he's going to fail a test, or he's going to get the flu. And now you got to play your backup receiver, and you don't want to lose that concept. So we found this was a little bit easier to coach kind of our peripheral kids or the kids that might want to be our top guys. And then I think it's a little bit more diverse if you want to start to run this to your number 2 receiver to the field. Sometimes throwing a bubble in Canada, number 2 to the field is a hard throw because our field's so big. Why do we like this versus the all stops? We just like the explosiveness of getting the guy the ball down quicker. And obviously we could block downfield. Here's an example of what it will look like. And it gives you some nice angles. It kind of becomes a punt return as your receiver catches the ball. So here's an example. First thing we're going to do is we're going to throw the backside fade or the backside stop route on this because our guy's so far off. So that's an easy completion. Here's another concept where we're going to throw the backside stop route. We got 10 yards off from the corner. Let's just take that completion. Here's a concept where we're in trips to the boundary and they only have 2 guys out there. So we're going to throw a quick now screen to the number 3 in our stack formation. We'll just turn, catches it, and then run upfield. Easy 10-yard gain on a play that probably would have been a loss if we had tried to run the ball. Now we're in 4-by-1. They have 2 receivers out there. We'll throw a quick little bubble screen. And in this situation, we handed the ball off because they had 1 linebacker in the box. So that's not really like, I'm not showing you anything groundbreaking, but if you're not doing this in your offense, this is something that you could do that kind of add in a huge component to it because it's very simple. It's very easy to coach. It doesn't take a lot of time to coach this during the week. So some of the common concerns I had is like, what if it's 2nd and 1 and I don't want my quarterback to throw that football? Well, then just call your run play without tagging the pass. What if my quarterback's really young and can't make decisions? Well, I mean, at some point you have to teach him, but I think that these are easy things to teach because you're giving him stationary defenders to read versus having him RPO a defender who might be not even the defender might not even know if he's supposed to be covering pass or playing the run. And obviously, you can create situations where maybe you tell your quarterback from the sidelines using verbal cues what you want him to throw. What if your receiver drops the throw? Well, I mean, at some point there has to be some risk, I guess. Now we'll start talking as we get a little bit more creative. Some of the things that Canadian football's unlimited motion creates for you. So what we started to do is we ran an orbit screen. Okay, the reason we did this is we really liked the nows and the stops that we were throwing. They were really good for us. We were getting the ball thrown for easy completions versus really easy defenses. And our quarterback was making really good decisions. We could coach him on what we thought we were going to get every week. We really liked those throws. It was getting the ball outside for us. We didn't really have a good toss play in our offense, so this was becoming our toss play. We started to see a lot of man-to-man. Teams were HBOing or bringing their halfback all the way across. We would go trips, or they would rotate the free down and the halfback up, which is a common Canadian reaction to 3-by-1 formations. This was good for our run game because it allowed us to run the ball back in the boundary. But we really want to get the ball to our best players, so we started to create this now screen with orbit motion. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to have our backside slot fast motion across to get into 31 as quick as possible, very similar to jet screen, like a jet sweep. And we're just trying to out-leverage the defense. If they either rotate or HBO, sometimes you can catch them where they're not able to react as quickly as we are, so you're able to get leverage on them. If they bump linebackers out, sometimes it'll leave them unsound, so you can take advantage in the run game as well. So the logistics of what we were trying to do is basically we would line up in our formation, and our quarterback would give the slot a hand signal, and our slot would go in full speed motion behind the quarterback. Our quarterback would start the cadence sometime around when the running back or the receiver was behind him, and we would snap the ball. And we would basically tell the quarterback, hey, look at the backside. If you can throw the 5-yard stop to the backside, let's take it. But if not, watch the guy that's motioning. Is anybody following him? If there's not, throw him the football. If they are, but they're not getting over quickly enough, throw him the football. And if they cover it fine, just hand the ball off. The motion man, we coached him basically fast motion as fast as you can. And I think in one of the clips, you'll see that we don't really get the fast motion we wanted, but fast motion as quick as you can behind the line of scrimmage and roll right into your 31. Throttle down as you start to approach the line, just like you would on a now screen. Catch the football, get upfield, get us 5 yards, and then do what you do. So the one thing is you can start to notice how as we motion that guy, we're essentially ending up in 31, very similar to the bubble or now screen we showed before. So here's a quick clip of it. This is the guy that's going to be reacting. You'll see we fast motion, not as fast as we want, but he gets out leveraged there. We have numbers to the top of the screen. We just throw a little bubble screen and let him go. In this situation, they actually react pretty well. So we just hand the ball off. So I think the key to this, why we liked it, is the fast motion was the key. It was very similar to jet sweep. You know, the ball carries at full speed, and if the defense doesn't move or he's not fast enough to react, you're going to be able to get the ball to your guy with a chance to run. Makes the defense decide right now how they're adjusting this formation. They got guys moving, yelling, running across the formation. They're bumping multiple players in new spots, trying to adjust in a hurry. The faster you run the motion, obviously, the better it'll be. You know, you can start to add formations to this to create options for yourself. As you start to move the motion man starting spot around through various formations, you create a toolbox of different looks. You can start them at like your strong 1, 2, or 3 and have them run the motion back to the weak side. I think you can really screw up a defense when you fast motion the number 2 and trips across the other side. You force basically multiple defenders to kind of realign in Canada. And having guys other than the Sam linebacker leave the box, I think sometimes creates unsound gap responsibilities in high school football in Canada because guys that aren't trained to cover are now covering. And Sam backers, who might not be trained to play in the box, are now having to play in the box. So here's an example of 32. We're running inside zone. We got an orbit screen. We're going to force them to make a decision. Who's got number 4? You know, maybe we start up in 32 to the field and we bring our strong 2 across. And now that boundary half has to HBO all the way across the field. How many times in that week do you think that guy's played that motion? Okay. So a couple things to remember, we call a run play. Like we want to run the ball. So handing the football off is never a bad decision. We have to tell our quarterbacks that it's okay if you're not sure to hand the football off. But if they're giving us a gift, let's take the gift. You can create rules for your quarterbacks. Like for example, don't throw the stop route unless the guy's 8 yards or more off, or only throw the now screen if the guy's 10 yards or more off, or only throw the now screen if the number 3 defender's inside the tackle. This isn't the answer to everything. Sometimes you need other plays. I think it's a great way to help your run game and steal yards when there's yards to be stolen. It's super simple. It can be done proficiently with a minimal investment in practice time, which is kind of what I'm looking for. How do I get things in without having to practice them all the time? Some people are going to play cover zero against you, and that's okay. They just go to your toolbox, throw your man beaters. But by doing this, you're starting to dictate to a defense that they have to account for your receivers. They have to account for some motions that you're going to run. Potentially, they're going to leave less guys in the box to defend, or they're going to get themselves aligned in ways that create weaknesses for you to run the ball, which is, I think, what our ultimate goal is if we're a run-heavy team. Let's manipulate the defense so we can run the football into the easiest fronts we see. Okay, so what's next? If you're thinking about this, if this is something that you would want to do, there's a couple different ways you can get this into your offense, and you can start to get more creative as well. If you have like some guts, you're not afraid to run your quarterback, I think you create a lot of interesting opportunities to do this kind of stuff. So here's a couple ideas, some things we've done in the past. We basically just went empty and would run double now or double bubbles on each side of the field. And now we really start to cause a chaos for the defense if we can run our quarterback between the tackles. The other thing is we would go like 42 or 51 and tag all stops and have a quarterback run play, quarterback draw, or quarterback inside zone as well. So we're in empty, and we're basically going to run QB draw with a bubble screen to the field and a now screen to the boundary. And you can see they only have 2 guys down at the bottom of the screen covering. We're just going to throw the ball to our running back, who's a guy we want having in the ball in space, and we'll just let him run. That's essentially a toss play for us. Super easy completion for our quarterback. And our quarterback, great, awesome athlete. Not a great thrower, but super easy for him to be able to train those throws in our offense. Here's another situation where we had shown that formation already. So now we went 33. They knew that the bubble was coming. We get one linebacker in the box. One linebacker in their box who leaves the box, and we run quarterback draw. And that's the easiest draw you're going to get. And now here's a Canadian kind of a nuance of football. We're in 51. And then we got 2 guys out here covering 5. I mean, I don't think a lot of teams are going to be game planning to stop 51, 5-by-1 in football. So we got 5-by-1 bubble screen with a QB draw tag. They got 2 guys out here trying to cover 5, because I just don't think they had ever expected to see 5 receivers to the formation. We throw a bubble screen to our best player, our best receiver, and let him run. So super easy to manipulate the defense, especially if you're a run-heavy team. You throw in 5-by-1 with maybe 2 package plays that you don't have to practice all the time. You come out and throw those in a key part of the game when you needed to create a spark. So here's the next thing we started to do. We started to run our quarterback with some tailback swings to serve as the bubble screen. So this is great if you have a running quarterback. You like to run the quarterback inside the tackles. It puts pressure on linebackers. We would basically create an inside run play and an outside run play in the same play. We'll call a run play for a quarterback, swing our tailback out early. If the linebacker follows them, we run the ball. If the tailback stays in the box, we throw the swing route. We're running QB power to the right with a swing pass. So here's how we would do it. We would call a run, and we would tag our running back swing. We call it a ranger. We'd tell the running back on a ranger, we want you to leave early to the same side as the running play. We want to make the play side linebacker decide, is he leaving the box or is he staying to cover the run. We tell the quarterback, if you hear ranger, you're now the running back on the play. As the quarterback starts the cadence, the running back turns, he attacks the sidelines with a bubble screen under control. QB watches the reaction of the play side linebacker during his cadence. If that linebacker doesn't move, just turn and throw the ball to the running back. It's essentially a toss play. The running back chases. If the linebacker chases the running back, run the ball because he's just vacated where we're running. It shouldn't be a hard throw. Just catch the snap, turn, toss the ball to the running back. Running back is told once the quarterback starts the cadence, turn to the sidelines, start to motion out, stay flat, eyes to the quarterback, give him an easy target to throw. Expect the football, catch it. Same thing. Get upfield, get 5 yards first, and after that, do what you do and get more. Now it gave us an inside and an outside play to the same side based on how the defense was aligning. Here's a clip. We're going to run QB power to the right. We're going to watch this linebacker right here. As the running back swings out, you'll see he steps out just enough that our quarterback thinks it creates leverage for him. So it's just trying to create opportune fronts to run the football in as best we can. Remember, we want to run the football, but if we can get a look that's a little bit better for us than the look before, we'll take advantage of it. Here's another situation from Western. where we're running a QB draw with the same type of concept. We're going to read this linebacker on the hash. You see how he flies out of the box, and our quarterback's able to run the draw into what's essentially a 5-man box. Here's a couple drills you can do to work this stuff and get some quick reps in a short period of time. So if you invest in this, obviously, the more you put into it, the better you'll get from it. You don't have to run this type of stuff a lot in Indy, but if you do a couple drills, you can start to get better at it. If you can start to get those bubble screens working upfield shoulder, for example, it's easier for your receiver to run after the catch. So the more proficient you get at it, the better you can, obviously, the results to be. So here's a little circuit we would do. We would basically just put a quarterback on each side of the hash. We would just have them throw now screens. And then after they would throw the now screen, they'd kind of work their upfield attack. And then they would go and become the next snapper, and they would snap to the other quarterback. And it would just be a cycle of back and forth. So the quarterback would throw to this receiver. He'd work his now screen. He'd run upfield. He'd just stand here. He'd snap to this quarterback on the next turn, and then he'd go get in the back of the line. So it's just a little circuit. And then this is a drill we call rapid fire. So we would have a receiver, a slot line, and a running back's line. We'd have one quarterback up. He'd throw 3 balls. So the first ball, he'd catch, turn, throw the stop route. Then he'd reset. Then he'd catch, turn, throw the now screen. Then he'd reset. He'd catch, turn, throw the bubble screen. Those 3 guys would finish downfield. They'd run around the drill. The next quarterback would jump in. The next guy in each line would jump in and rapid fire. So it'd be like this: catch, turn, throw, reset, catch, turn, throw. You get a lot of reps in 10-minute period, and you're getting all your guys' work. So it's a good little drill there to get everybody involved. That's kind of getting to the end of it. I think the biggest thing that we got from this is if you show a defense that you're going to throw the ball to guys who aren't being accounted for, they're going to have to account for them. It's going to give them less players to defend the run game. It's going to force them to move defenders to respect your formations. You can start to manipulate the defense in ways you want by showing them that, hey, if you don't respect what we're doing, we're going to get the ball to that guy. We're going to get it to him in an easy way. It's not going to take a lot of our practice time, so we can still be very multiple in the run game, but still have some answers for what the defense is doing. That's basically it. Hopefully this is something that you can use in the field. You can contact me on my Instagram at Coach Matt Snyder. I know it's kind of simple. It might not seem that complicated, but if you're kind of in the situation that we were, this is hopefully something that can help you out.
Okay. Wow, Coach. Man, I just really enjoyed it, man. Really well said, and like speaking right at my heart, because I'm a conservative play caller. I'm a wing T guy, but it's something that is absolutely necessary because so in my I'm not a head coach currently, but I was for 11 years. And in my last 2 years, I started really exploring this idea of this. I thought, as a wing T team, we would always run into some teams that would just challenge us and put one guy on that guy and say, the heck with you. We don't think you can beat us with them. And I started thinking like, okay, maybe I can't force you to cover that guy 2-on-1, right? I get it. I can't force you to do that. But I thought I need to kind of stop thinking of that. It's either 1-on-1 or 2-on-1. Because the reality is, could I get to cover you like 1.1 on my one, right? Can I get someone else on their defense to have some sort of responsibility towards that guy? And I think that was going in that direction. And so to hear you say all those things and to spend those couple slides saying, hey, are you this type of person? Are you this? Can you go back at run and look at run plays and see examples where you could have had easy yards? I just really loved all that. When was the first you started really exploring this concept?
We had been throwing like bubbles. Like we saw like people throw bubbles. I was a Purdue fan, so kind of used to the bubble screens. And we were throwing bubbles, and we were like, why don't we just throw the ball to that guy? Like he's right there. We had a guy on our team, and I'm kind of like you. Like we had a guy on our team that caught maybe 10 passes one season, but he only caught passes on the backside, free throws on plays. Like we didn't have plays in our offense where he gets throws. We had one guy one season where if we're throwing the football, we're throwing to him. We're going to try to get him open different ways, but like we had to create situations where we could force people to play our defense or our offense honest. I remember we played in a game, one of the biggest games that I've kind of been as a high school coach, where the first half of the game everything's going chaotic. It's like 7-0, and we go into halftime and we're kind of like, they have 2 guys covering trips. If we go 3-1, they have 2 guys out there. Like, let's just throw a bubble screen and force them to cover it. And so we came on the second half and just threw bubble, now screen, in the boundary. And we ended up winning the game. It was like, it doesn't have to be like that complicated. And I'm not the greatest presenter. I think the one thing I kind of wanted to like display when I talk about this is like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. I see a lot of clinics on RPOs and, like meshing and reading the wheel backer and throwing the slant. And we do that at Western. It's awesome. It works. But I mean, as a high school coach, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's great. We can't practice that. And like that quarterback that we're playing right now, like he's a running back. He's running power. We're a QB power team. So I don't even trust him making that throw. And like, why would I want to take that risk? But just turning and banging a stopper out to the boundary. And the biggest thing is like, it's super easy to install. Like it doesn't take away from what you're trying to do. You can be a wing T team and tag this. You could be like a wishbone team or a flexbone team or like a 2-back tight end team. You can start to add these things in. To answer your question, I remember watching a video where Brett Favre was talking about how when he was with Green Bay, he would run the ball and he would always kind of turn and fake, throw that like the little smoke slant out to, I think it was his receiver in Green Bay. I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought like,
or something.
yeah. And I was like, that's what they do in the NFL. Like, why can't we do that here? So it just kind of naturally became, and we started watching some things and we liked it. And then obviously the more we did it, kind of like necessity breeds invention. So we would do it and then we would say like, oh, now this is a problem. Like, well, how are we going to combat that? And then the more we had success with it as well, we kind of started to see like, maybe we could do more out of it. Like, let's try to get more out of this kid. This kid that catches the bubbles is really good. Like, how else can we get him the football and other ways to run bubbles? So
now, how do you guys communicate your plays? Do you guys like signs, hand signals?
Yeah. So in high school, we hand signaled everything into our quarterback, and we didn't run the no huddle in high school. So we might go like hour now.
Yeah.
And then in university, we're a no huddle team. So we're a little bit more complicated at Western. We have a little bit more diversity. Like we're doing the same type of stuff at Western. When I got to Western, I kind of saw like they're doing the same thing, the same philosophies as we're doing at South. Obviously a little bit more complicated. We'll run more concepts on our run stuff than just all stops. Our quarterback plays obviously a lot better up there, but it's the same kind of thought process. Like if you're going to play on honest defense to stop the run, we can just bang these easy completions out. So yeah, we hand signal and stuff.
So when you kind of always have the option, I guess not always, but from the looks of it, in a lot of what you're doing, there's kind of always that option to take that easy hitch to the backside.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, on average, would you say approximate number of about how many hitches you think you throw that stop route? How many would you say you throw per game?
I mean, the option's there if you tag it. So there was games when I would, like, maybe we were getting a groove running the ball and we'd say, like, it doesn't matter if these guys have 8 in the box. We're still pounding them. So we're not going to tag it. Like, we want to run the ball. Other times you're running the ball and it's like, man, we're not getting yards. Like, we got to start tagging stuff. Sometimes our quarterback would come and be like, you got to start tagging now screens on our runs. Like, there's nobody covering me. A lot of times it was the receivers like, this guy's off me or nobody's covering me. I would say, like, in an average game, we might come out in the first half and throw 4 or 5, maybe 3, 4, 5. And then teams will start to tighten up. But what that does, it kind of opens up other stuff down. So that's when we started to come up with the stop or the fade route. We were throwing stop routes in a game, and they were kind of playing us tight. And then our best receiver comes and says, like, just throw a fade next time. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, so we called a pass. We called a run play. We said our quarterback, like, listen, I'm going to call a run play next time, but I'm going to tag our fade play instead of stops. And if Noah's one-on-one, just throw him the fade. Like, let's take our shot. And we completed it. We're like, oh my God, like, okay, that's in the offense now too. So it kind of became like that. And it was the same thing with the stop and goes. We're running like all stops and we're running the ball. We're calling all stops, running the ball. And our receivers kind of like, man, every time I'm throwing him a stop route on the now screen, the guy just keeps jumping me. Like, I'll just double move him next time. And I was like, yeah, okay. So let's run like fake power, double move to the backside. And we threw that. And we're like, all right, that's in the offense now too. So everything just kind of came off something that happened and got us to the next step. And that's kind of how we got there. So,
well, I love it, Coach. I really appreciate your time. And thank you to all those who joined us. Coach, anything before I sign us off? Anything else? Any closing thoughts?
No, I just think like, don't be like, sometimes it's okay to take some risks. It's okay to be conservative as well. My friends make fun of me, like say, if you could run the ball every play in a game, I would. But I think if you do this, you'll start to see that there's places on your film. Like if you go back and watch the film, like I said, I think you'll see like, hey, we can do this in the offense and it's super easy to run. You don't have to practice this all the time. And I think this will help your offense. So if I can kind of give you one piece of advice, I would just say, like, take the time right now to look and see, is this something we could fit in? And maybe just even tagging all stops on some runs is a super easy way to start to kind of get your feet wet. And and start to say, yeah, this is working for us. So
Yeah, I like the way you say that. And, you know, if you don't take the time to go back and look at those things now, I mean, you know, there you have no excuses right now.
yeah,
Go back and take a look at those things, man.
for sure.
You know what my buddy said, or you know what they say, you got to bet big to win big. And
Yeah.
so you got to be willing to take a chance at some point. Well, Coach, thanks again for
Thank
joining
you.
us. That's Matt Snyder. You can find him on Twitter. It was what? At
Coach Matt Snyder.
Coach Matt
I'm on
Snyder.
Instagram and Twitter. Add me.
Oh,
I'm always looking for followers. But I appreciate having me on. This is awesome. I know a lot of Canadian guys will love having this, and I just think it's great. Everybody's kind of putting the time into to make football better. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
yeah. Well, thanks again. And again, Wednesday night, we're going to try to make it Canadian football night. If you are a Canadian coach, you'd be up for speaking, hit us up at the Chief Pigskin on Twitter. Or if you would like to suggest someone, please leave us those names. Guys, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back here on our YouTube channel again tomorrow night with another home clinic for you to enjoy. So if you haven't already, please like this video. Those things help a ton, and subscribe, and we'll catch you soon.